guys, so today I'm going to show you how to print on linoleum, which is this little piece right here. It's kind of like a hard rubber or plastic that you can carve out. And the materials that you will need for this project or printing project would be a piece of linoleum, an image of your choice, a roller, carving tool, and this one comes in with different types of blades that can be used to carve out the linoleum, and it could also help you carve pieces of wood for like a wood block printing. And also for this one you will need specifically block printing ink. This one can be used either for linoleum, vinyl, foam, rubber, and wood block printing. So the thing about this ink is that it's very thick, so it's best if you use this type of ink, because if you use screen printing ink, it might not work or print the same as well as the block printing ink. Also, never use it for screen printing. Never. Because like I said, this is thick, and while the ink for screen printing is thinner than the block printing ink. Now, the first step for this printing process is, of course, finding the image. Now, the image that you want or design for this print can be anything you want, and I just chose a picture of a makeup palette. Like eyeshadow palette right here, kind of shows eyeshadow and some little details here on the side, or other shadows from other things that were made in this image. Now the first step, or I guess first or second step for this part, is transferring your image to the linoleum. Now there's two ways to do it. There's the cheap way, which is one that I will be showing you today, which is getting a piece of charcoal, or you could even use a regular like number 2 pencil or HB pencil. That can be useful, or just a piece of charcoal. And the second one, which it would be a little bit more expensive depending on where you buy it, would be a carbon paper, which helps you transfer the images from the image that you have on paper to the linoleum. Now, after doing so, we are going to show you this little section right here. Now, after getting either a piece of charcoal or a regular HB or number 2 pencil, what you're going to do is go behind your image right here. What you're going to do is get your charcoal or pencil, and you're just going to start kind of basically in a way coloring it in, like the whole page. Just color the whole page with your charcoal or your number 2 pencil. Now, it doesn't have to be like super dark, but at least it covers the whole image, and it's enough for the image to be transferred from your piece of paper or the design, wherever you have your design. There's also other people who are more likely to draw their design on the linoleum, but to make it a little bit like easier or faster, you can just make your design either on like Procreate, like on a tablet, draw it there, and you could just print it out and transfer your image from paper to the linoleum. Now, after doing that, which is somewhat like this, you are going to get your linoleum, flatten it out a little bit. And a good way for this to be flattened out while you're working with it is if you glue your linoleum to a block of wood, which would be preferred, so then like your linoleum doesn't stay like super curved while you're working on it, and it won't be as hard to do. Now the second part or third part for this now is you make sure you keep your image in place. And either grab a pencil or a pen. Preferably I would just use a pen, so you can kind of see the areas where you had this image. And now I'm just gonna trace over my image. After you trace your image onto the linoleum by having this covered and tracing it with either a pen or pencil, it should look something like this. Your image should be somewhat transferred. Now, you don't have to worry about like these little things, because like later on you're gonna be carving it, and then like once you're done you'll clean it and then just print it, so you don't have to worry about that. Now the next step, which is somewhat of my favorite part, would be carving the image out. So you could get one of these. Oops. It's a tool that it's used for carving linoleum or wood for like printing. And the way these things are stored is that they'll have usually the blades inside of this. So you just pop this out or unscrew it, and you take out a different blades right here. Now you need to be careful with these, because even though they look like they're not sharp, they are. I already had a few accidents with these, cutting myself with like my fingers, especially when I was working with a wood block printing project. So be very careful with these little suckers. Now I will just put the cap back on. Now for you to place one of your blades into one of these, what you have to do is basically kind of unscrew this, kind of to make this little ball right here loose, so then you can have one of these go in. Now the way you're going to do it is that this is the blade part, and the bond on the bottom, which is kind of a little bit wider and it's not as sharp, would be the part where you would have to insert it into like this little ball thing. Now make sure to not let this fall out, because this will not be a very useful tool anymore if this falls out, because then this won't be able to like function properly. So if you see that it doesn't go in, screw it a little bit more, and then eventually it'll slide right in. Now you screw it back on, nice and tight. Now, the way you're gonna carve this is depending on the angle that you have your carving tool, is how deep it will go, and also there'll be different shapes depending on like the type of blade you have. So some carvings will be either thinner or will be thicker depending on which blade you use. So since mine image is kind of small, I will most likely just use this smaller one. So now what I'm going to do is carve out some contour lines on this image, and depending on how much pressure I have and the angle, it will have the little pieces come out. Okay, now that I was able to carve out a few lines, you can kind of see where it's carving. Once it goes lighter, that's when you know you carved like a piece out. Another way that will be kind of useful or helpful for like when you start carving is you can also use some type of ink and like just not the block printing ink, right, but maybe like a little bit of acrylic with water, cover it, and then just start carving it out. And just by having this color on this will let you know what places or parts you have already carved so far on your design.